I'm joined now by Arliss Collins, NumFOCUS's Developer Advocate. Arliss joined NumFOCUS in 2020, having previously served as Data and Metrics Analyst for the Mozilla Foundation, as well as the Participation Coordinator for Mozilla Science Lab. She brings with her experience in open source advocacy, data science, and community engagement. Arliss acts as our staff's primary point of contact for our project maintainers. And among Arliss's services to our projects includes her role as program manager of our Contributor Diversification and Retention Research Program, which is a 2-year initiative with seed funding from the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation to help our projects identify and ultimately address barriers to entry for contributors from underrepresented backgrounds. This research is crucial to NumFOCUS's commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's a big part of our collaboration with our projects on project governance and community development. So hello, Arliss, welcome.
Hi, Terry. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here to talk about this work.
Well, thanks for joining us. We're glad to have you. I thought it might be good just to maybe provide a little bit of context on the program by asking you what the main goal of this Contributor Diversification and Retention Research Project is. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's an important program. And I'm wondering how how does that main goal of the program fit in with NumFOCUS's broader mission of making scientific computing more open and accessible?
Great. Thanks so much, Terry. Happy to answer that. I will say I agree that the name is quite long, so we actually affectionately call it here the CDR project. So if I say that, that is what I mean. So the main goal of this work is to analyze barriers to participation in open source scientific software community. And we're initially focusing on our own NumFOCUS projects that we support. And our goal is to, following this research, to then take our findings and share it with the broader open source community. So when we started off, as I say, with this work, we are working closely with 20 of the NumFOCUS projects. And in the initial stages, we developed a theory of change for this research so that we could understand the impact that we would be hoping to achieve with this work. And as mentioned, it is to increase diversity and inclusion in our NumFOCUS project contributor communities. And then building off that, hopefully to impact the broader open source community. There were 3 main outcomes that we were looking for, as I said, was to understand the demographics of the project contributors, become aware of what are the challenges to bring on contributors from underrepresented groups, and again, to identify some best practices with regards to diversity and inclusion in areas such as project governance, codes of conduct, documentation, and then with those best practices, identify then to share them initially with our projects and then to share more broadly. This work, as many people have said, it aligns very closely with NumFOCUS's vision of an inclusive scientific and research community that actively supports open source software to make impactful discoveries for a better world. And feeding off that, NumFOCUS has also made a further commitment to diversity and inclusion by creating a public diversity statement, which supports our core belief that a diverse community is stronger, more vibrant, and produces better software and better science. With a diverse community, this is where people treat each other with respect and has more potential for more sources of ideas, fewer shared assumptions that may potentially hinder development or research. So that is directly aligned with a lot of the beliefs that NumFOCUS has in this area.
Yeah, you mentioned our vision statement, our beliefs, and then that public statement that we generated. This project, from what I understand about it, and I know you're in this every day, I hear about it, of course, from updates that you provide to staff on this important work. But it really sounds like a an embodiment of what we say publicly. And obviously, words are one thing, and words are important, of course, but those, especially I think with DEI related initiatives, actions, of course, need to back up the words that that we say and that we publish. So this does sound like important work. I'm wondering, in terms of interacting with our project maintainers that you've been working with, have you gleaned any sort of, any particularly interesting findings yet? Maybe an unexpected quantitative data point that you would like to share, or maybe a qualitative anecdote about, the experiences that our projects have had with DEI so far, and I suppose more specifically, their challenges they might have faced to sort of opening up their project to more, a more diverse set of contributors. Any insightful updates that you might have?
Sure. So we are, as I say, we're about halfway through our 2-year grant, and what we've done, and we've been working very closely with the project leads that are participating in this research. And one of the key deliverables that we did in our first year is to put out a demographic survey to the contributor communities. And one of the great things about putting together that survey was it was a very highly collaborative piece of work, which is one of the main cornerstones of open source, is collaboration. And by putting together that demographic survey, we came out with some pretty interesting findings. We have put together a large report, which we will be sharing publicly shortly. But from this quantitative study, a couple of things that came to mind was what we gleaned was the typical contributor can be summarized as an upper class, highly educated white male from North America or Central and Western Europe. And I think when that was presented to our project leads, that I think that was understood by the leads. I think it's one of the concepts that they have about their communities is it has been focused in that, and hence one of the reasons why they're very engaged in trying to find ways to reach a much broader, more diverse community. We also found one of the key things is that English is the dominant language for a lot of the communication. And this, as I think most people would understand, becomes a barrier to participation for diverse contributors. So as we went through the survey, that's a couple of the things that we hit into. Also, contributors for these programs have primarily had PhD degrees, and they have had long time contributing to projects. So I think as you see this building out with this information, we can see some of the barriers that we need to sort of dig a little deeper into. So as well, that we did a demographic survey of the contributors, but we also did it with the project leads at the very beginning. And some of the challenges that came out of those discussions that they made us aware of is that it's very difficult for them to measure their contributor community. It's very hard for them to really get an understanding of just how diverse their communities are. And this is one of the things we're hoping to work with them to try to figure out. Number of the projects also said that they don't have any concrete plans or ways in which they can tackle bringing in diverse contributors. And that, again, it's a barrier for the project leads, but that's what they're sort of hoping to see coming out of this work, is some ways to help them with that. Yeah, and finding out about diversity in the community can be very challenging because it's sometimes in a topic area that can have some privacy concerns. So this is one thing that they want to know more about their communities, but it's very hard to get a hold of that information.
Sure. So. Something you said earlier struck me as, perhaps it's not surprising that those with the most experience are, generally the most comfortable contributing to an open source project. But I suppose it's nice to have, hard numbers and data on that to be able to, use as a starting point to investigate solutions, to include folks who don't quite have that experience.
Yes, that's right. And also, I'm just thinking too, sorry, Terry, but I was thinking also too that when they have those sorts of not necessarily metrics, but ways to get a gauge. They can then use those as hard numbers or proxies to sort of see if, what type of an impact are the initiatives that they're working on around DE&I, are they having an impact on the growth of their community?
Sure. I'm certain that the folks who have joined us for this call are probably wondering, those who might be familiar with the CDR project already, at least. The first part of the project sounds like it's a discovery phase where you're doing a lot of investigating, you're doing interviews, things like that. The second part of the project, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but is more focused on maybe implementation of some, I wouldn't say necessarily solutions, but ways to address the lack of diversity among, contributors to our projects. And I'm wondering if, with the acknowledgement that you're only halfway through your cycle right now, and that your timeline is going to yield a lot more discoveries that might impact your answer to this question. But in a nutshell, what's next for the project? I mean, is it will you be continuing to work with our project maintainers and contributors? If someone is on this call who maybe has contributed once or twice to a project, or is just generally in favor of the work that NumFOCUS does and is a supporter of our mission, what's important for them to know about where this research program is headed?
Yeah, so yes, as you said, we're a part of the way through, but we're hoping the ultimate goal will be to come out at the end of the 2 years with some sort of best practices that, as I said, that we will share with our project leads, but also with the broader community. There is an opportunity here to take this project further. And we're hoping that there would be some opportunity to get some additional funding moving forward to where we can do a deeper dive into testing some of the best practices that we have come up with. Some projects have these, others do not. So it's a collaboration of sort of working together to move that work out into our other projects. So testing some of the best practices. We also want to build a excuse me, peer mentoring work to help with bring on new contributors to projects and to encourage current contributors to take on leadership roles. So additional funding to help us do some pilot projects in that sort of area would be very helpful. Another area that we are really looking into as well is finding the opportunity to see if we can have funding for a community manager. A number of our projects have them, but many do not. And a community manager, having a dedicated resource that could work with not just one, but many projects to help them implement some of the best practices that have been identified, and work with them to get moving forward, depending on the level of where they are with their project. That would be something we're very much looking into, is providing that sort of a service to help projects build out their diverse communities.
Great. Yeah, I mentioned that this program was initially funded by the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, who have been longtime foundational funders of NumFOCUS, and we certainly appreciate their support. But it does sound like you outlined a few further opportunities for investment by corporate sponsors, by individual donors, and other foundation funders as well, to help this important work going forward. So
Absolutely.
Arliss, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk about this work. Now, I understand from our marketing manager, Carolyn, that we're going to be having some more frequent things like blog posts, perhaps some social media updates on this CDR project in 2022. Can our community expect some regular updates on this program from you?
Absolutely. Yes. Much of the background information and the research has been done. Now we're at a point where we can share our results and then carry it further into 2022. So stay tuned for definitely a lot more communication around how this project is progressing.
Fantastic. Thanks. You've done a lot of hard work, I know, with our projects, getting this off the ground. And I know that I've received some feedback from a few of our project maintainers that this program is going really well. So Arliss, thank you very much for joining the call today. I know our community appreciated hearing from you and about the CDR project. So thanks.
Thanks so much, Terry.
I'd like to highlight another important member of our community, Lauren Oldja. Lauren has been a longtime volunteer with NumFOCUS through our PyData New York City meetup and now serves as the chair of our newly created Fundraising and Partnerships Committee, which we call our Champions Circle. I invited Lauren to share a brief message about why she's chosen to support NumFOCUS over the years.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Oldja, and I'm a data scientist here in the New York City area. You may know me as the executive co-chair for PyData NYC 2018 and 2019, a mentor for this year's PyData Global Impact Program, the co-host of last year's PyData Global Pub Quiz with James Powell, or the inaugural chair of the NumFOCUS Champions Circle Fundraising Committee. I'm also a sustaining donor of NumFOCUS via monthly donation. NumFOCUS has an important role to play in the health of the open source scientific computing ecosystem, supporting sponsored and affiliated projects on educational outreach, fundraising, and administrative needs. The money you donate to NumFOCUS goes directly to the projects in support of NumFOCUS's mission: better code makes better science. Better science is more transparent, more equitable, and more reproducible. And with the myriad challenges facing humanity today, I think you'll all agree that we could benefit from better science. Now, speaking personally, the PyData community has had a tremendous impact on advancing my career. Volunteering with NumFOCUS and PyData has given me leadership opportunities that I wasn't otherwise able to find at work. And volunteering has also strengthened my network by giving me the opportunity to make friends and to celebrate joint achievements with local and global technical peers outside of work. And also, speaking as a career changer, the PyData community has given me a sense of belonging in the tech industry. So it just goes to show you don't have to write a single line of code to make a meaningful contribution, although of course you can if you want to. And there are many opportunities to join sprints and things like this that I've also taken advantage of, and it's been a wonderful process to be both on the organizing side as well as on the contributor side. So I ask you today, when you think of NumFOCUS or PyData, consider giving your time, your talent, your treasure in search of better, more inclusive, more transparent, more equitable, reproducible science. Thank you.